Hello and welcome to Bandy, a podcast about being flexible in all of the ways that means. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andy Young, and I'm one of your wistful, sentimental hosts. Joining me as always is our other wistful and sentimental host, Beth Martin. Beth, a pleasure as always. What's the crack?
So, we just had to restart because I forgot to press record, so I apologize.
Don't
But we
ruin the
are
magic.
only,
Don't
I
ruin the
know, we are only
podcasting
five
magic.
minutes in, and the power might go off. So
I
it's
nice.
just, I'm very
I,
excited.
I see a star in the background as well, a very pretty star in the background. She just walked in.
I let her sorry. So I'm in my new office space, and
Yeah,
this is her way to get in and out of because she's got a little doggy door
yeah.
that the kids sometimes go through too, and
Really
so
do
now she just kind of
that.
lets herself in and out. So she might like scratch at the back door, and hopefully you won't be able to pick it up, but maybe you can, and that would be
Yeah,
super cute.
there'll be some extra background.
Um, right. No, the crack is we took a trip to down to Ensenada,
Uh-huh.
Mexico. Okay, so we went to a zoo. We stopped like on the way down. It's interesting. Like, I don't know what I expected about Baja, but it's like dry. It's
Interesting.
very dry. There's like
Whereabouts
very few
is it?
plants. It's like on the
I'll look it up.
it's on the west side of the
Yeah,
peninsula.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yes, you're going down the peninsula. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it's like two hours south of the border. So I actually got to
yeah.
like we drove along the border, and it's actually two walls, which I didn't know, and they're
Okay.
really big. It's like a a big wall and then a road right in the middle so that they can drive up and down, and then another wall. And I'm not sure who like has jurisdiction over that middle road, but yeah,
Hmm.
it was really interesting to see it. Um, but yeah, Ensenada's cool.
Uh-huh.
And like they have these little like tiny towns on the way down. Um, and yeah, we just like ate really good food, had a bunch of tacos. I
Uh,
did not, yeah,
can you talk a little bit about the zoo experience
I can. So, we went to, it's
or
called
Safari
the,
Park? Sorry, rather.
yeah, it's like a safari park. They had a zip line, which I did,
Hmm.
and a bike on a zip line, which I did, but I was like doing it with Charlie, and like he was behind me, and I was going uphill
Okay.
on a tandem bike.
Interesting.
So it didn't go well, and we got stuck, and he was crying,
Oh no.
and like we're 40 feet in the air, and he's looking down. I'm like, don't look down. You gotta pedal, buddy. You gotta pedal. So it was silly, but we also it was like a feed everything experience.
Uh-huh.
I saw my first axolotl,
Ooh,
which are
that is
apparently
exciting.
native to Mexico, which I did not know. And then I got to feed raccoons, hippopotamuses,
Hmm.
lemurs,
Hmm.
monkeys, and it wasn't like, oh, just, throw them something. It was like the lemurs are like, he's like, just turn backwards and they'll hop onto your shoulder. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so you're like holding things and the lemurs are crawling all over you to try and get like the snacks. And the monkeys were, I got to hold a capuchin monkey. The raccoons killed me.
Hmm.
They were so fat because all they do is eat snacks all day.
Makes
And then
sense.
they have these like big pillars of fake tree that like has little beds on top. So they just kind of like drape themselves on their backs at the top of the trees when they want to
Nice.
like be left the fuck alone. So you have these like fat upside down raccoons just like hanging.
I mean, like that's the ideal thing for them. And
Yeah.
raccoons do love to eat, so just being like fed all day long is like an absolute dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And like one of the, was it National Health Society? I don't know, NHS maybe?
Hmm.
Did some report that basically states that reincarnation is true. This came out like 2 days ago. And I
Okay.
was like, well, all right, interesting. And I'm like, if I come back as anything, I want to be the raccoon at the safari park. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
like
So
it.
it was good. It was good. What's
Um,
the crack with you?
that sounds nice. Over the past while, what have I done? Yes, I know because I've seen Wicked since we last we spoke.
Oh, me too.
Okay,
Mm.
I really enjoyed it because like I had no real expectations of it, and I was like, I kind of get a wee bit overwhelmed if musicals are like too much musical and not a lot of like plot and stuff. But it was a good balance between the two. I thought the two main leads were excellent. I think it predictably made me cry. I mean, unsurprisingly. And like I thought genuinely some of the songs, particularly like Defying Gravity, were really powerful. But yeah, I loved it. I really did.
I saw it, so I'm gonna please people don't hate me.
Hmm.
I saw it on Broadway.
Ooh.
Um, like it wasn't the original cast, but it was like the second cast
Yeah.
who've gone on to do amazing things.
Did we talk about it? Did you see it before our last podcast, possibly? Because I think if I recall,
I was
you had
going to
seen
see
it,
it.
or no, I think you had seen the movie before,
Had
and we don't.
I?
Yeah, I think so. And I was yet to see it. So I think
Was I
so.
talking shit about it?
No, I think you liked it, but I can't. Well,
Yeah.
I think you were like at a midpoint actually. Now it occurs to me. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks.
I know.
Yeah, so I liked it. I just like the play more.
Yeah, I think I want to see the play now for sure.
Yeah, it's funnier. It's funnier.
Yeah,
So, and
I'm
but
I'm curious.
I did think it was great.
I'm curious, kind of like having seen how they did certain things in the movie, how they would do certain things in the, stage production. So I'm definitely curious, I must say. Like,
And
but I think,
I also want to see because like they only you only saw half of the
mhm.
show
Yeah,
or whatever. So I don't know what I'm curious like because I it's been 15 years like what how they're gonna make another 2 hour and 40-minute movie.
I think like somebody had pointed out, well, even like the stage production is what maybe 3 hours, and like half
Yeah,
of it they've done a 2 hour for it. So there's definitely some padding in there from the
yeah,
existing story. So I'm sure they have something. Well, I say I'm sure they have something planned out, but then I think about the most recent Star Wars trilogy, and I'm like, there's no guarantee.
right.
And it's not like people learned lessons or
Speaking
anything
of
stupid like
nostalgia
that.
cash grabs, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you saw it though. Like,
So am I. And I don't know that I would have if my friend hadn't kind of nudged me to go and check it out. I'm really glad that I did though. I'm probably gonna go and see Moana 2, I think, this week, maybe, because I
mhm,
have a free night and if I have a free night and I want to switch off for a few hours, it's the movies for me.
yeah.
Um but yeah, so anyway, so here's what you'll be happy about. I did tell my friend about this. And I went to see Wicked, and she knows that in the past I have been a musical skeptic. She was
Hmm.
furious with me that I went to see Wicked before seeing The Greatest Showman, and I said, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
I have somebody who will agree with you on that." So
Whoever
yeah.
this friend is,
Mhm.
they're already my friend.
Yeah,
Because if that's, yeah, definitely. If I had to pick, there's no question.
yeah. I will. I'll watch it eventually, but I say I'm really freaking struggling to watch
Now
movies
you're
nice
not
these
doing it
days.
just because like it's a silly principle, because I want you to.
No, I've got
You
to
know
say, I'm not that sort
the
of person where I'm just like, I'm not going to do that because too many people have told me. It's just more to the point that where I'm like, I I really struggle to find a night where I can watch a movie these days.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, you're saving it for when we hang out next,
that's it,
and
exactly,
and then I
exactly.
can scream the lyrics at you while you watch the movie at the same time.
Wonderful.
I
I'll just have to
know,
get
I'm so
those.
excited.
Have to get those earplugs that you can't tell there's earplugs in. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Beth. Your singing's beautiful, on key, matches up with things
I'll be like, I can
perfectly.
sing both parts.
Yeah, yeah, you
Listen.
can. Yeah, you can. It's incredible. So on and so forth. But yeah.
Hmm.
So I went to see my friend's band. He has recently, well, I mean, I think they've probably been together for about 6 months or so now. Um, but they've done a couple of different shows. Their first show was literally the Friday when I was flying out to see you guys.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I didn't see that.
Oh, okay, I
So
was gonna say, holy
no,
moly.
like I flew that
I
morning,
was
so
like, how'd you do that? You're on a plane at 4 a.m.
literally impossible. Yeah. So I was happy to see him again. But we were also affected by a massive storm. Like I think like a massive storm in the UK, something that's a big deal that we get like yellow weather warnings. The average American would go fucking no big deal. But it was like pretty extreme winds and so on. So everything was kind of cancelled and whatnot. I had friends who were going to come over for that show, weren't able to make it and things like that. But I braved the weather and I was glad that I did because it was nice just to kind of get out there and see him play.
Good.
So yeah, that was nice.
What is yellow? What's the yellow warning?
It's like basically, you know the way like you have wildfire warnings and it goes from
Hmm.
like yellow, orange, red. It's that
Hmm.
essentially.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's danger to life essentially. So yellow is
Like trees might fall.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And trees did
Gotcha.
fall. Like there's some big trees in the area that fell down. So it definitely is potentially risky, but nothing too severe. But yeah, so that was fun. But it was just I say it was good. I'm really glad I decided to go up because I was not sure whether I could be bothered, and it was good fun.
And you did it, and you were
I
like,
did
that
it.
was a good
Hmm
idea. Huh? Good.
Liked seeing the band mixed in the socializing with people I don't really
I
know.
know. It's okay.
But it's fine. That's the nature of me. But yes, but anyway, so well, then we can move on to what's occurring this week. Do you have anything?
I do real quick. Spotify does its Spotify Wrapped,
Yes.
which to me is like, oh wow, you have bad taste and like I don't know, like shame on
Yeah.
you for. But we had some um lovely people that sent screenshots of their Spotify Wrapped, and Bendy the podcast was on it.
Mhm.
And I just like I can't even believe it. It makes me feel so happy.
Me too.
My own personal Spotify Wrapped was embarrassing and shameful, like the amount of true crime and like, you know,
I
silly things that I listen to.
yeah, I think
And how
because
many and the number of hours I'm actually like listening to podcasts. So yeah,
yeah, I'm
shame on
like
you.
because I don't because I'm on Apple and I'm kind of curious. I know that they do something similar, but I haven't even checked it yet, so I'm gonna have to.
It's like a whole uh and again, like I really appreciate people. I'm not trying to uh shame anyone. It's just it's I saw actually I thought that like when it came out, it's like very bombastic and it's like a whole presentation. And we like because we're podcast producers, like we get this
Uh-huh.
other one for the podcast itself, and it shows you like, you know, how many people have listened and where, and it's a whole presentation. Uh it's just crazy, the amount of marketing that goes into all of this. I
It
don't
really
know.
is. I'm curious. I'm gonna. It seems like Owl do have them. I thought I would be able to check in real time there, but I
Yeah,
think it's
no,
gonna. I
it's
think it's gonna
okay.
play my music, so I don't think we want that right now. Um. Okay. So I have two
Okay.
occurring
Okay.
things. First off, I haven't had one in a while. It's an Andy's Down with the Streets. Something that I've
Yay.
just encountered recently. Like I like to encounter them organically. So I'm going to ask you. I think the chances of because I had never heard of this before, and I think it's a relatively new phenomenon. Do you know what a Kia is? So the word is spelled Khia, and either is pronounced Kia or Kea. It is related.
K K
K,
H I A.
correct.
Huh.
It's related to music, is what I'll say, because I think the chances, like, honestly, even if I give you the description, you'll probably be like, huh?
There's no fucking way I have any
No.
clue what this is. If I'm like cars, but they're spelling it wrong.
So yes, that was my first thought as well. So Akia is a pop girl, so like so a pop star, a female pop star who people talk about, but no one seems to care about culturally.
Wow.
So, and it's a whole thing, and it's one of these things you just sort of like you find this whole kind of undercurrent of the internet that there's this whole thing. So they
Can
talk
you
about like
can you reread that definition for me one
sure,
more
Akia
time?
is a pop girl who people talk about, but who no one seems to care about culturally.
Okay.
So two of the people they've talked about that got out of they talk about people being in the Kia ghetto and they can break out of that. So like for example, Charlie XCX this year broke out of
Mm-hmm.
it. So did Chapel Roan.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, there was an awareness of them, but then they finally have become a hit the mainstream, and it's this whole well of nonsense that is attached to this. But yeah, I find that quite interesting. It's just again, it's one of these things. Apparently, if you're on X a lot, if
Ah,
you're into the queer music scene, it has been part of your like language for a long time. But
now we're all just getting hip to
and
being
we're
as
all getting
cool.
hip to being to what a key is. Like it's
I had
ultimate.
no idea. I've never
Oh,
heard it.
me neither. Ultimately, completely useless. But I always find these wee sort of tangents quite interesting. Um,
That stumped me. Good job.
Thanks. So that's Andy's Over the Streets. That our word this week was
Yay.
Kia. I think that yeah, who knows if I do a close off. I'm doing it this time. All right. I've got another one, a whole new
Okay.
segment. It's not that exciting, but okay, so it's a corrections and omissions section that I'm
Ooh.
titling Uh-oh SpaghettiOs. I
Okay.
think I invented Uh-oh SpaghettiOs. I'm pretty
You
sure.
sure did.
So I'm
Yes.
going to copyright that.
Yep. No
Just for
one's
the
ever used
future.
that
No,
on
no, no.
no t-shirts
No,
or
no, 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 no.
commercials or anything like
So
that
that's 100% Andy
for our whole
original.
lives,
Yeah.
right?
So it's basically a corrections and omissions to something I talked about in a previous week. So, and I absolutely conflated Logan Paul with Jake Paul last week.
Oh,
Jake Paul's the wrestler, Logan Paul's the boxer. But I think on the episode itself, I did say I thought of them as one like amorphous blob anyway, and that is actually absolutely kind of like played out because I just did conflate the two of them. But there will be, Logan or Jake Paul stands out there who will be furious with me, no doubt. So I just thought I'd better go back. I don't want to hear any of your bullshit. I've corrected it, okay? So yeah, that's this week in Uh-oh SpaghettiOs.
I would say, oh, spaghettios. I would say, uh, confusing either one of them is an easy thing to do
Yes.
because I watched the documentary and then I think I watched a part of another one about like the lead up to the Tyson Paul fight,
Hmm.
and I still get them confused. They look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Um,
And they're both, certainly uh hmm, complicated guys, let's
yes,
say.
yes,
So
yes.
yeah.
Upon more investigation, yeah, there's definitely
Yeah.
a reason they're living in Puerto Rico and
Yeah.
not the United States.
Yep.
So okay. Oh, I like your new segment. Very good.
Thanks very much.
Yep,
All right.
yep, yep.
Cool. So we move on to the topic this week, which is
Mhm.
called nostalgia. I've sort of was going to call it sweet nostalgia. Again, what do you think? Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay
I
with sweet
ended up,
nostalgia?
I was
It's quite
thinking
sweet.
nostalgic cash grab, but then as I went down and started like working through it, I was like, this is wonderful. So I like sweet nostalgia.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You'll find out. You'll see the episode whenever you click play.
Yes.
What is this called? One of those things. But yeah, just chat about
We
nostalgia.
really put effort into this,
Don't
guys.
we? Truly. Um,
Lots of
so
research and
lots of
development outside of
research.
outside of
I,
our on air time.
I have a page of notes. Thank you very much.
I do
Um,
too.
so just literally that, like, and I think, and I want to talk about this in more detail because I think that like nostalgia has become even more intense in terms of how it's like commodified and marketed and especially over the past few years. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously it's been a big thing for a long, long, long time now, but recently it just seems to be like everywhere.
Yeah. I would say like with a commodification of nostalgia, that's just going to be a thing.
Yeah.
I will say, okay, so I was trying to figure out like what is nostalgia? Is it good? Is it bad? Like what is like what feeling do we get when we hit that nostalgia button
Hmm.
and we have that feeling wash over us, because it is a feeling. And I feel like for me, it's like the feeling of familiar, or
Yes.
like when you go to your parents' house that you lived in, growing up, and you feel that feeling of like being home kind of.
Yeah.
So like I would say like it brings up like happy thoughts of childhood for me, happiness, and I think um something we maybe enjoyed as a culture
Yeah.
together. And so when something comes out that like is, a reboot or something from our childhood, it's like, yay, because like everyone is excited and we're all clued into the thing. And I also think it reminds us of a time when like there was a different pace in life.
Yeah,
It's like a change of pace kind of thing.
that's true. And like I suppose it's like a reminder of like innocent, especially childhood and stuff like that. Because I think, it's interesting. It's one of the things that occurs to me a lot is that like when you're young, you're craving to be an adult, and as soon as you're an adult, you just wish you were young.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think that is like, nostalgia is such a, you know, very easily sort of manipulate. Oh God, manipulatable. Is that a word?
Yes.
You're able to manipulate it for evil uses. So like it is something
Manipulable,
that is easy. And
manipulable.
like, like I think about, what I'm saying at home. So like, I think like particularly for our generation and for the past few generations, Star Wars is such a big one because it was such a phenomenon and they have exploited the shit out of that as a result. Um,
I think for nostalgia, like our generation is the easiest to mine
yeah.
because so much cool shit. Like we're the best generation,
Well,
obviously.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But like so much has come from, it's not like everyone's like, oh God, Frank Sinatra. Ooh, like let's
That's
bring back
true.
X, Y, and Z. It's all stuff from like the 80s and the 90s.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah. I,
So
one of the things, and I wanted to bring this up early on because I feel like there's a chance you haven't seen it, but there was a relatively recent South Park episode, though I'd say probably within the past 10 years, because I've been in and out of watching that show where they have member berries. Do you know about this? Okay. So they
no.
basically had these. One of the episodes was about this company started like selling these things called member berries. They look like grapes, but they were like had little like faces on them and like they had voices and they were like, "Hey, do you remember Chewbacca? Do you remember the Millennium Falcon?" And people were just like lying on the sofa eating member berries, and it was just such a perfect skewering of like that sort of way of thinking, how lazily it's just like, yeah, here's fucking Chewbacca, all right, you happy now, you fucking idiot. So it's very funny. And it so perfectly
I
sums
want to
up,
eat those so bad.
right? And this is the
Yeah,
thing, yeah. And
I want all of it.
and I think it like perfectly like, it ran between those two lines of going, yes, nostalgia is kind of dumb and it's very kind of easy to exploit, but also, God, sweet nostalgia. How I want it, how I want to use it to transport me back to a simpler time in my life, etc., etc.
Yeah, I I find myself wanting to like, because I think I get grumpy about things that have to do with money and like people making profit off of
Yeah,
something. Um, that I feel like shouldn't be made profit off of, but at the same time, like I want to see the reboots. I want to see the re-releases. I want to see the toys. I want my kids to get into the things that I was into.
yeah.
And it's like perfect for all of that. Like I'm the person,
It's
right?
like and I hear you, and like there is part of me where I'm like, I want, but I really want them to be well done. Like I think that whenever, and it really frustrates me a lot. So I can think of some recent examples, and one of the things that I was going to talk about was like in the past few years, in particular, there's been this idea of legacy goals. So like so many movies and products that were like haven't really been seen for maybe like 20 years or so. So
Yeah.
like Gladiator 2 is a great example of that. Beetlejuice is an example of it, like,
Hmm.
or even like the recent Aliens film, which,
Hmm.
arguably
Romulus.
You could say Romulus and stuff like that were movies, but like I don't know about those movies at all. But like I kind of respect them because they at least were trying to do something different. I just think it was bad for the most part. Anyway, but right, sorry that I'm talking about not Romulus. It's not important. The ones that came out, the Ridley Scott ones that came out about like 10, 15 years ago. People are
Oh,
screaming at
like
me now.
Like Alien
Yes,
Resurrection.
thank you.
Yes, yes.
Whatever the other one was. But yes,
Yes.
Romulus. What really frustrated me about Romulus, and I think what they get so wrong for me is that there was some interesting, cool characters. The setting was quite cool. It was a cool sort of it went through a lot of the kind of, common story beats, but it had some fun new ideas. But then one of the characters at one point says, "Get away from her, you bitch." And I'm just like, no, that is just like a hey, do you remember Aliens? Do you remember Ripley was fighting the alien queen and said, "Go away from her, you bitch." And it's like, fuck off. That really undercuts any sort of character development. It's just nakedly taking you out of the film and saying, "Hey, do you remember this other movie that was probably a bit better than this one?" Thanks, bro. So I kind of feel like they really misjudged the
Are
level of nostalgia that they put in these things too often.
I think they dumb it down
Yeah.
too, where they're like, well, this one we're like catchphrase, like what was that movie Free Guy
Yeah.
with Ryan Reynolds
Yeah.
where so this has nothing to do with nostalgia, but like they're building these video games and like he's the character in the video game and so they're going to re-release like the next video game and they're trying to make his character bigger and better but like it's not programmed yet and like so his like character is like big and buff and like but the
Yeah.
only thing you can say is like catchphrase which like cracked me up because it's just like oh something that gets so overused, right?
Right.
And it does bother me that like they think we're that stupid that we don't
Like,
care enough. I don't know.
I
It's
mean,
lazy writing. It's
it is
lazy
lazy
writing.
writing, and it's just, and it also is like death to original new writing as well, because it's like, instead of this line that has been lifted directly from an older product, it stops a writer having the opportunity to create something else new and memorable. And
Hmm.
I think, it speaks in a big way to how risk adverse a lot of like entertainment companies are now. They just kind of want to stay in this very kind of safe zone. But I think it will like just mean that we're going to hit a point where there's nothing to cannibalize anymore. There's no new idea, and it's just feels like it's creatively in like a whirlpool of, trouble.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think, and there's nothing wrong with indie films, but they're the only ones that are trying to do something slightly different.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
that's our pool to work with right now. And I miss the writing of movies like Goodfellas,
Yeah.
right? Where you're just
Hmm.
like, holy fucking shit, you know, or not even the writing. It's like this movie starts with them knifing a guy in the back of the
Yeah.
car, and it's like so realistic that you're just like floored, right?
Well,
I miss
yeah.
that kind of creativity.
They talk about like, all too often whenever movies are written these days, they're kind of going through and they're like, especially like big budget things, and they're like, well, okay, we can get rid of this
Mhm.
scene because it doesn't move the plot along. But it's those scenes that reveal more about like it's not often reveal more about character and like allow you to like live in the movie a little bit more. So it's such a loss whenever they're taken out a lot of the times. And I think
Totally
it's
agree.
wearing people down just generally.
Yeah. And like, obviously like Star Wars is a machine of its own kind
Yeah.
now. I saw there's a Jude Law,
Yeah.
what's it called?
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that's come out and I was like, oh, maybe we should watch that. Jude Law is always a good time.
Yeah.
But uh
Eh,
I'm still like there's a backlog of Star Wars stuff that we haven't even
oh,
gotten to.
I mean, truly, apart from maybe one or two shows, I would say do not bother. Most of it
Mm,
has been pretty terrible. I mean, it's one of these show, but it's interesting, and I think this is the big sort of trap of nostalgia for me because, like, I'm pretty certain I'm a Star Wars fan. I think the world he constructed, um, and the ideas were so cool and interesting, and like, yes, you
I
can
mean,
be. You can be
stolen
like,
also
yes, I
from
was going to say, but
Dune.
like,
Yeah.
yes, you can say he cannibalized stuff from June and whatever, but his take on this, was fresh and felt, energized and new and exciting. And it had, and this whole idea of like a lived-in sort of sci-fi universe felt really refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like um, but
That's an excellent point.
and it came to me at a time whenever I was like, I love this, and my mom kind of had me watching Star Trek and things like that as a kid. Like sci-fi was so important to me because I love the sort of like limitless imagination that's possible in sci-fi. Um, but like I think that I probably dislike the vast majority of the Star Wars product, to be perfectly honest with you. Most of it's bad, I think. And but I'm still a fan, and
Yeah.
I kind of struggle with that a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like I don't
I
get
mean,
it.
totally. Like, I was so freaking excited when they brought back all of the original characters,
Yes.
and then they fucking killed Han Solo. Sorry, everyone. Spoiler alert. And I was like,
Yes.
I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Like, you can't. And like, whatever.
I
This is
kind
the
of
problem with nostalgia,
I have a big respect for Harrison Ford in that regard because apparently he was like, I will do another movie, but you must kill me. Basically, that was his
which
because
is
he didn't want
fine.
to do it anymore. He just wanted a big paycheck, and I'm like, full respect to you, Harrison Ford, for doing that. And like, of those, I think that trilogy is pretty bad, but I think the first and second movie have interesting moments in them. They're not bad,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
think that the third movie is such a disaster. It's untrue.
Hmm.
And to me, and to go into, you are capping off a series of six movies that mean a lot to people. To go into that with no clear plan about what story you're trying to tell is insane to me. I don't get it at all. Because so
They just
basically they were just
told the
making it up
same
as they went
story.
along. Yeah, and they were just like, let's just do the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck off.
Build
That's
a Death Star-ish thing, and yeah.
I mean, say what you will about the prequels, but at least George Lucas was attempting to tell a different story, and
Yeah.
I think he didn't quite succeed, but there's some good stuff in there too as well.
I'm noticing that like the movie Stranger Things, or not movie, the show Stranger
Yeah.
Things, we're on what, season 4,
Yeah, something like
hopefully
that.
coming
Yeah.
out soon. And that show is like totally
It
nostalgia,
is.
80s, like bands, clothes, hair, hanging out at the mall, like all the, the whole thing reeks of that time. And I remember the last season, there was like a really intense episode, and they played one of Kate Bush's songs,
Yeah.
and it like infuriated our generation. They were
Mm.
like, we've been listening to Kate Bush forever, and like now like all these young people are into Kate Bush, and like I was like, you're not allowed because like
I
you
hate
weren't
that
there.
shit.
And that like the roadblocks,
Yeah,
or
gatekeeping.
like the gatekeeping, yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of thing kind of pisses me off.
I
Um,
completely agree.
and one of the people that really was like on that train was I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Taiki Watiti.
Taika Waititi, yeah.
Thank you. He was like on Twitter just like furious about like how he was Kate Bush's #1 fan, and how dare everyone kind of
Like
thing. And I'm like, she's like getting rediscovered. It's a whole like her whole career has been reinvigorated.
it
So
has.
in those regards, like I think it's a wonderful thing,
Yes. And like,
because
yeah,
like not just for the art, but also for the artists,
big
hopefully,
time. I think like I don't know whether this was happening like concurrently or afterwards, but like she started touring again a little bit. There was
Mhm.
like there's been talk of her potentially releasing some new music and things like that. Would those things have happened without that sort of reinvigoration? It's so like, it's like all things like I you can't condemn it completely, and there's definitely the potential for interesting and new stuff to come out of it. It's just, I think that fear of like alienating, I don't know, your core fan base. And like, honestly, in my
Mhm.
opinion, it is never worth making films for those people because they will never be happy with what you give them.
It's true. It's true. It's true. And I think we've talked about this on some other topic, but it it's like the people that like the Marvel all the Marvel
Yeah.
movies and the DC comic movies, like it's legitimized, and like Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons,
Yep.
like it's legitimized being a nerd for us.
It's
Like
true.
it's legitimized our childhood for those of us who, were theater nerds and D&D nerds and all of the best kinds of nerds, comic book nerds, it's like
Hmm.
um it's made us cool. It's made our childhood cooler. It's,
It's true.
you know, it's I look back differently because the shit that like I liked is now, making a lot of money, and like my kids think it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. I mean, like the Marvel stuff in particular, like, I mean, I still remember
Mm.
being a kid and like reading in the 90s because for a while James Cameron was going to be making a Spider-Man movie. And I was
Oh,
like thrilled at
yeah.
that concept, and it just never came together in the end. And they ended up going over to Sam Raimi, which I also delighted about. Don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
and we were like, you're starved for stuff, and now there's just I can't believe some of the characters who have had full movies made about them. It's staggering to me, like it truly is. Um, but like but even that, that's a good one because it's relatively new in the grand scheme of things. I mean, obviously you had the X-Men movies quite a while ago, but if you think about the MCU, it's like what? 13, 14 years old, maybe, I think, since Iron Man.
It came out in
Huh,
like 2008, I think.
I did it. Oh, yeah, maybe you could be right. It would have been in Taiwan. No,
Yeah.
I think a bit later than that. Fine, check, please.
I'll look at
Or
my mind
check,
garden.
look
Hold
at your mind
on.
garden. Um, but like, but you see the like nostalgia cycle shortening, right? It's because people are already nostalgic
Yeah.
for like Iron Man and things like that. And I'm like, that's not that long ago, really.
Andy,
Uh-huh.
you know how much I love saying this.
Uh-huh.
I was right.
2008, really? Wow.
2008. Yeah.
Jeez, was that Taiwan then? How interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But no, I do think that
Jeez,
things are
really?
shortening in terms of like the the time frames at which they're redoing and re-releasing.
Hmm.
Uh, I was thinking about like, well, obviously Star Wars. I was thinking through what were the sort of the best and the worst, like, or did they make something better from something that we knew? I think Mad Max Fury Road is probably like my
That's a good
example
example.
of something
Yeah,
that they did really well. And like watching that movie,
it's
I
a good question.
appreciate that it definitely, keeps with a lot of the same themes. And obviously we
Yeah,
have, I think Tom could have done a better job playing Mad Max, but it's also like when you're making a movie at 60 miles an hour,
yes. There's like no other movie like
character
that.
development doesn't really, you're just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what that film was, which is why it's so fucking cool. Um, and I can't remember if I told you this or not. Uh, what's the guy's name who makes Mad Max movies?
George Miller.
His wife is a cinematographer
Oh, okay.
and a video editor, and he was like, can you, like, he's like, I've always wanted to work with you, can you be my video editor for this movie? And she was like, yeah, I guess so. She won an Oscar,
Nice.
yeah,
The
for
rocks.
cinematography for Fury Road. And
That's
it's
good.
like, what a badass lady to be like, yes, all right, let me get on my own camera war rig and like drive at 60 miles an hour to
Yeah.
film this movie every day. Makes me
It's
so happy.
it's even, and I'm gonna her name's gonna escape me now, but like you go back to Star Wars, there was
Mhm.
I think maybe his former wife who like did the editing and stuff for the movie, and like they talk about what a key, if it wasn't for her it wouldn't have been the
Yeah,
movie that it was. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? So you
yeah.
have all these like, and I think there is certainly for these things that like go as big as that, there is this perfect set of luck of all these like people, coming together at the right time, which is
Hmm.
tough to make organically. Um,
So this is off topic a little bit from movies, but I remember like going to Target. This is probably like 6 years ago,
mhm.
and they had an entire shelf in the kids section of like Light Bright. Pound Puppies,
Yeah.
Etch a Sketch, like all the toys we had as kids. And I was like stoked.
Yeah.
I was stoked. I was like, my kids get to play with the same shit that, and like some of it I kept and like ended up rebuying because it was, thrashed and didn't work as well or didn't work at all. But like just seeing that aisle and seeing all those same things, like I'm there. I'm totally. It's cool that I'm their target market
Yeah.
sometimes, and I'm grumpy about it. But I'm also like, I will spend all the money.
See, like, I mean, I was gonna say kids' toys kind of are surprising me in that way, but like I kind of do see it. I can see how it might happen because like oftentimes it won't be the kids that'll be buying the toys, it'll be the parents. So they see
Yes,
something they'd recognize.
yes.
Like it even happens, and it's been happening in like board games. So there's a game.
I wanted to talk to you about games because this is definitely there's a pattern here too.
There's like there's quite a famous one that I played when I was a kid called Hero Quest, and it was
Mhm.
this kind of old school sort of like dungeon crawler type thing, and they've completely overhauled that and built it up again. And it's like 130, 140 quid, but like I was still considering it because I'm like, I quite enjoyed Hero Quest, but I'm like, I wouldn't have time to play that. You know, it's got a very different game, blah blah blah, but it is very much the I have some familiarity with that, so therefore do I want to spend too much money on it?
Right.
You
Well,
know?
it's like you're playing Oregon Trail, right?
I am. Oh, I need to talk about that.
Okay. Um, so there have also been like some worst,
Yeah.
remakes. And I think we've talked about Blade Runner being one where we're just like, why?
I
Where's
think
the perfection?
that's a better sequel than I ever thought it would be. But yeah, it's pretty unessential, really, you know. And
Hmm.
it's also one of these things that I fucking hate when it's like, oh, well, there's a sequel coming out. We're going to answer all your unanswered questions. And I'm like, my unanswered questions are what makes that film great. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Gus Van Sant redid, this was like, I think in the 2000s, he redid Psycho, the
Yeah.
movie Psycho,
With Vince Vaughn.
um, shot for shot.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, why are you doing this? And he's like, because no one else is going to. And I was like, what kind of answer is like, I didn't understand it. Like, why would you literally shot for shot remake that?
It's such a
Especially with the shower scene, which I think was like 90 different clips all put together, something
yeah.
crazy.
That's yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I don't
That's
understand
just
that.
shitty.
I don't understand that as a creative exercise. I don't know how that would be fulfilling for him to make, but who knows? I mean, maybe they think they learned something from like, copying or like the master, but like I don't know. That's very strange to me.
Yeah. I'm also noticing that they're re-releasing. Speaking of re-releasing, because we're gonna do it for Christmas, guys. Um,
Hmm.
sorry. Uh, but they're re-releasing a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Like before the new version comes out of whatever they're like redoing or and they'll re-release the original so they make sure that it's not so much like let's catch everybody up. It's like let's catch the money where we can.
Like why I ended up seeing quite a few of the Spider-Man movies in cinemas recently because they had them all eight of them in a row. So yeah. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
but like it's funny because you talked about using old properties and actually, and I'm trying to think of other kind of good ones, but I think Fury Road's such a great example of that. Um, like, and I think, I also kind of love, like, I really quite like the recent Evil Dead movie, which came out last year.
I have not seen it yet.
I would say it's very different to, what came before in the Evil Dead series, and it's like more horror-y than comedy.
Who did Sam Raimi didn't direct it,
Same
right?
guy that directed Alien Romulus,
Okay.
Fede Alvarez, I think his name is.
Okay.
And I really liked it a lot. And I liked it because it was just like, okay, here we have a core idea of what the Evil Dead sort of concept is, and we're just going to do our own thing with it. And I thought it was fantastic. And I think
Hmm.
that's what I want to see. Yes, the other one I thought about was um it's interesting how you can revive a property that's been limping along for years. So Predator movie. First
Yeah.
Predator, action, masterpiece. I recently also found out that Predator is a big movie in the gay scene, which makes so much sense because it's all these like oiled up, muscly
Oh
men. I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm like, of course it does. Um, and like nearly every, I have a soft
They're
spot
all
for,
running around being daddies.
yes,
It's
big
great.
time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They are. And like, I have a soft spot for Predator 2, but it's not a good movie. Then there's like Predators, The Predator, most of
Alien
them,
versus Predator.
Alien versus Predator, two of them. Most of those movies go from being okay to terrible. And it was just like, what is this? This franchise is just limping along. And then Prey came out year and a half, 2 years ago.
So
It was
good.
fucking awesome. And it's
Yeah.
like suddenly this franchise is back on its legs again. It's doing interesting stuff. It did something a bit different with the concept, had some fun ideas, and was fantastic, you know? So yeah, who knows?
Hit or
Fuck,
miss. I
yeah,
know.
fucking
Okay.
nostalgia.
So I've
Mhm.
got some nostalgia questions for you.
Okay.
So what are some things that give you nostalgia?
Um, I mean, like, stuff that I think had a lot of meaning to me as a kid. So Star Wars is such a big one for me.
Yeah.
Um, I think um the superheroes in particular because like I loved comic books so much as a kid, Spider-Man particularly. I think I told you before, whenever the three Spider-Man leaped into action in No Way Home, I like burst into tears, like
Yeah.
real hard, heavy, uncontrollable sobs. I was so happy to see my three guys all up
Yeah.
there doing their shit.
I know.
So like,
I totally cried too.
oh, so good. And like I think I reevaluating that film. I'm not sure it's that good a film, but it really worked on me anyway. So like those things, and like nerdy stuff in particular, like I do have nostalgia for um D&D and things like that, and some role playing stuff I did as a kid. Like I'm starting to get back into that. That's obviously something that is constantly changing anyway. I think that's one I'm really happy with the kind of revival it's had over recent years because I think it can be a lovely sort of collaborative thing you can do with friends.
Hmm.
So those are probably the main ones. Some music as well, but
Hmm.
those are the things that really kind of have their hold on me. What about you?
I think for me it's because I was a theater nerd,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that like Wicked is such a big deal because it's it's a play, it's musical theater. So that makes me happy. So just like any musical from that I watched when I was a kid, that watching with my kids, like I just it's and like I don't even remember that I knew all the lyrics. Like
Yeah,
like it just feels good, right?
it does.
And like I guess this is kind of a love-hate thing. Like we're rebuying all of the original like Clue, Monopoly,
Hmm,
Life,
hmm,
Battleship, like all the games that
hmm.
like in America were popular in America when I was a kid, and we're buying all of them and we're playing them, and they've changed things. They've changed these games. Um, and I understand some of it and some of it I don't. Like Clue, they've renamed a lot of the characters to be
Uh,
more appropriate for today's day and age, which
yeah.
is fine. Um, but like even the game of life, they've
Oh,
changed. And
really?
like, yeah, I don't want my job to be a vlogger or a social media influencer as an option, right? It
How
pisses me the
interesting.
fuck off.
That's funny. It makes
I
sense,
know.
like, but I didn't even
Yeah.
consider that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that level of change is happening where it's just like it's for me, it's like a little uncomfortable. But I still have the nostalgia where I'm buying it and I'm spending the money and I'm bringing it home and I'm playing it with the kids.
Uh, yeah, I totally get it. Like, as you're saying that, I was sort of thinking about. I think I definitely like. I have still a lot of board games up on this shelf that I had as a kid. Like
Hmm.
I can't, but like I will. Don't think I'll ever play any of them again. There was just ones that we like. I was like, oh, it would be nice to have. I was thinking there are probably authors like Roald Dahl is such a big
Yes.
one for me,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like so like I was really excited to see like the Henry Sugar short and things like that, and I've watched a lot of the sort of I haven't seen the rest of those shorts, but I really like enjoyed Henry Sugar, and so it's such a big sort of connective tissue to my past. So Lord of the Rings as well. Like I
Hmm.
was so thrilled whenever those movies came out because that book was so important to me as a kid, and The Hobbit as well. Like once the Hobbit movie started coming around, I was kind of off the bandwagon a wee bit. Like
I
I
think
saw them all.
I think the world was.
But like I think what the interesting thing about well not the interest those movies were absolutely made to because they wanted money and like that was it because like the cool thing about the Lord of the Rings movies was that they had like literally like a year maybe 2 years of pre-production which is just unthinkable in this day and age so like you can see it it's you can see it there it's like it's so well put they're so well put together
Mhm.
um but like you know now you have Rings of Power series, which I watched first season of. I thought it was really fucking boring, and I just have zero desire to watch. And I have zero desire to watch the second season. And that's actually what whenever I was thinking about this, the point I wanted to make, which was that that show feels pointless. It feels completely pointless, and I think that is my big problem with bad nostalgia is that oftentimes it's like, why does this exist? And
Mhm.
if it doesn't have a reason, a good sort of substantial reason for existing, I just wish it didn't all too often because it's just a friggin' it's billions. I think certainly in the case of Rings of Power, possibly billions just being pissed away because like Jeff Bezos likes, you know, those books.
Mhm. I like Lord of the Rings in space.
Yeah, yeah, great. Okay, so we have
Yeah.
this half-ass show then.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Yeah.
man. Based
Yeah.
on nothing really. Awesome. Can't wait.
Do you have smells that you smell and you're like, ah, like Calgon, take me away? Do you guys have a
Huh.
Calgon?
No, I know that. Is it a dental thing?
It's a what?
Is it a dental thing? Like toothpaste?
No, it's like a soap
Okay, okay. No, I don't think so. You
marketed to
know,
ladies to like Calgon, take me away,
oh,
like, and then
interesting.
I'm off into like Flowerland or whatever. Yeah.
Love it.
Uh-huh.
You
It
know the
was
bit. Sorry,
marketed to housewives
was there a
in the
handsome
80s.
as a handsome
Uh-huh.
gentleman? Was Colin a handsome gentleman?
No,
Okay, great. All
it
right.
was a soap
Okay, fair enough.
because they
I
clean. That's what they
you know,
do.
I understand. Yeah, okay, okay. Look, so you know the biggest sense memory for me around a smell is the smell of sun on tarmac in America. Like I associate that with holidays, and also the smell of like
Hmm.
coconut sun cream as well. Those are two
Hmm.
things that really transporting to me. Also, like some food things like my mom used to make this lentil soup a lot. That really is really transporting to me. I make it sometimes now.
Hmm.
So things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely like food smells.
Yeah.
Um, I think I was telling you about an old book that I pulled off my shelf and
Hmm.
like I opened it and I stuck my it's probably like 60 years old.
Hmm.
And I just like that smell of old book, like all the glue is coming apart, the pages are all browning, so and just like sticking my face into the binding and smelling it, that smell of old books.
Yeah.
Because I am my mother was a librarian
Yeah.
and my dad was a history professor, so I spent a lot of time in libraries,
Yeah.
right?
Me too.
And so just that smell of old books, I it's wonderful to me.
I hear you.
Dusty
Yeah.
paper, man. Woo!
Yeah. I like, and like
Give it to me.
I also kind of love it's, both the very old and the very new. There's nothing beats like, especially if like I'm getting a new comic book and it's shrink wrapped that I get to pop that and just that we crack of opening the back over opening it for the first time. It's like, oh yeah. Very satisfying.
Yes.
Ah, we
Yes.
are nostalgia's bitches at the end of the day.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think
One and
so.
all.
And like I'm here for it.
Yeah, like I don't want to be exploited because of it, but I kind of feel that there's like little I can do about it in a lot of ways. Like, and I can choose when to. And I think I used to, if I started something, I would be determined to see it through because I'm like, well, I've started it. I have to finish it now. But like
Mhm.
I have quickly gotten out of that where I'm kind of like, if I am not enjoying something, I don't see the end point for it, I will just abandon it, like
Yeah.
happily now,
Yeah.
So I think that puts me in a better position now. So like I will try something and I will probably give it some proper effort, but I'm prepared. I can walk away more easily.
Hmm. I think for me, because I have two children that are, at that age where they're able to watch things and do things, I'm much more conscious of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And like last night, I'm like very carefully selecting like which movie we're going to watch for Christmas, like a Christmas movie because we set up the
Hmm.
Christmas tree and like, because it was something that I loved to watch when I was a kid. So and there's a lot of, I guess, more thought that is behind it for me. And like on the business side of things, like I really, I hate commodification of anything.
Yeah.
But in this regard, I'm willing to have a reciprocal relationship if they are willing to produce some stuff that like gives me that nostalgia hit.
Absolutely. I know what you mean. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a
So
tough one.
yeah,
I
it is.
Yeah, it is. But I think I'm probably in the same sort of place. And like, I just want more than anything, keep playing these sandboxes. If they're interesting sandboxes, I'm all for it. But all I ask is that, there's some new creative impulse involved in these things.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
Yeah.
go nuts, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Um, yeah. Do you
Any
want
other
to
thoughts before we move on?
I think I'm good.
Okay. Cool.
Unless you want to talk about original Nintendo and how much I love that.
Yeah, I mean that video games is very much a nostalgia thing as well. But
Yes.
then at the same time, like sometimes I go back to old video games. I'm like, oh my God, how did I like this? It's an
I know.
interesting one. Just before we move on, is that like how your memory remembers how certain video games look, and then you go back and you play them, and you're like, oh my God, this is appalling looking. I remember seeing this
Yeah.
at the time and going, how can graphics get any better? And then
Yes.
they're like, it's
Yeah.
nuts, honestly
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like watching The Last Unicorn as an adult, and you're like, oh gosh, this is
Why
terrible.
did I think this was good? Yeah. But folks, if you've got any thoughts on nostalgia and things like that at home, be
Hmm.
sure to let us know. Even if it was just to tell us how cool and smart we are and how our opinions and nostalgia are really good
Dead on.
and fun to listen to. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to our favorite question. What's been bringing you joy
So
in the past
I don't
while?
I don't know if you guys had this show. I'm sure you did probably. The show Girls.
Yes.
Okay, I'm rewatching it
Okay.
and it's so fucking good. It's so well written.
Yes. I've only seen one season of that show and I need to watch more. Yeah.
It's just so I over the last couple of weeks I've watched all six seasons.
Nice.
I've just been binging the crap out of it.
Yeah.
It's so I think what I realized, like I enjoy because I'm always behind in all things in
Yeah.
life for the most part. So like I really didn't really I wasn't part of like the cultural shift and like everyone watching it at the same time. I think I saw like the first season and then I was like, all right, I need something because holidays and all that. And I started it and it's so good. And I also think that like I enjoy watching things later because there's not so much like conversation happening
Yeah.
about it. And so I just like my opinion is my own opinion
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's not clouded by, you know, the rest of the world's thoughts. And um
Yeah. It's a good take.
I I also like went down a little bit of a like Reddit rabbit hole because I was wondering about one of the characters and just like Reddit can be such a terrible place for
Yeah.
creators. Like why just the amount of negativity about this show and it's so fucking good. So I don't know. I recommend that people give it a rewatch because there's there's nothing out there like it.
Yeah, it is one that I have often thought I'd be considering, but like you know me, I've got like about 8 billion
I know.
shows on my list that I've been meaning to watch, and I
Yes.
really enjoyed the first season when I watched it. I just never got around to watching more. It's like, Leftovers is another great example of that. Love the first season. I'm told the
Hmm.
show gets better, and I just
Hmm.
haven't had the time to watch more.
I would watch Girls before I would watch Leftovers. If you
Okay.
like laughing, it's so fucking funny and weird and like human
Yeah, I
and
remember
all the
like,
flaws. Like she's always like someone's always naked and you're
yeah,
always like, God, it's not the naked body I wanted to see, but that's the point, you know?
yes,
It's like they show you things you don't necessarily want to see. And also like there's a reflection of things that you don't necessarily want to see in yourself. Because half of the time I'm like, that's me. Oh, that's me,
yeah. I
you
remember like
know?
how weird and awkward like Adam, because that was Adam Driver's breakout, like how
Yes.
weird and awkward he is in season one of that
Yes.
show. It's yeah,
Yes.
it's cool.
He's like that the entire six
Yeah.
seasons. And also, like her friendship with Elijah, her gay best friend, is the funniest pairing for me ever.
Okay.
Like Lucy and Ethel funny. So funny, so good. And like when they decide to wear like handkerchiefs on their heads and eat burritos when one of them's sad, it just kills me. So
Okay, nice.
I highly recommend watching it.
Um, Mine is, and I'm nearly finished. I think I might have talked about this a few months ago, but I've nearly finished Delicious in Dungeon, which is an anime I've been watching. It fucking rules.
Mm-mm.
I like an anime every now and again, and this one's fantastic. Essentially, I think I might have told you about it before. So anyway, the idea of this show is that these monsters, or sorry, these adventurers are traveling through this dungeon. They're too
Hmm.
poor to buy supplies, so instead they're
Hmm.
killing and eating monsters. And what I love about anime and what it does so effectively that I think a lot of other media doesn't is that's its starting premise. And from that, it fleshes out to build this really interesting, well-constructed world with like actual genuine stakes and really kind of well fleshed out characters. And you're like, how did this happen? Like they keep, freaking killing like jellies, like dungeon jellies, and then like, you know, turning them into like noodles. And then these beautiful like shots of these jellied noodles that they're about to eat. But it's actually really making me emotionally connect to characters. So yeah, very wonderful. If you're at all an anime fan, I highly recommend it. It's pretty wonderful.
Very good.
That's it.
Yeah. I love a good anime. Is it anime or anime?
I don't know. I think both
All
of them are
right.
fine. Like
Okay.
my opinion on those things is that if people understand what you're trying to say, you've said it correctly.
That's
What is
true.
it? Language is descriptive, not prescriptive, which is the one I really like.
That's good. Spelling, on the other hand, and
Whatever.
grammar.
Yeah, whenever, yeah, yeah. Hey, fuck that. I don't
I
care.
know. I know.
Communication is key. Um, yeah. So in that case, Beth, would you like to let everybody know where they can find us?
You can find us at bendypodcast.com.
Mhm.
It's our website. Check it out. I
Cool.
do picture rotations of embarrassing photos of us from time to time, so you never know what you'll see.
Perfect. I feel like I had a good embarrassing one with me recently. I'll see if I can dig it out.
Please send it. I'll throw it up.
Perfect. All right. In that case, folks, as always, we'd like to remind you to
Stay
Bendy.
Bendy.
Nice. All right.
And
We
now
love you,
I'm going to
folks.
sing Defying Gravity for
All right. I'm
everyone.
stopping the record. Stopping the record. Bye. Bye. We love
Bye,
you.
bye,
Bye.
bye.
Nice.
All right.